Okay, so the next tutorial that I want to take you through is layer masks. So what layer masks do is they allow us to create a new image in Photoshop without losing any data. So what I mean by that is if I were to take a piece of Angelina Jolie's lips, for instance, so let's just make a selection of her lips. So I go up to the marquee tool, duplicate that layer, we'll turn off everything else. Now I can delete the areas that I don't want using the eraser tool, but what happens is that once I've lost that information, I can press undo once, but if I make lots and lots of different selections, and I keep editing and erasing, eventually it will get to a stage where I can't get that information back. So my histories panel shows me the past few steps that I've made, and I can undo, but just notice that this is a finite way of working, and eventually if I keep on erasing, that data will be lost forever. So it's actually quite a destructive way of working. Another way that I want to show you is creating a layer mask. What a layer mask is like a stencil, if you like, and so you can hide and reveal things, but you never actually lose that information. And at any one time, you can always go back and paint more of the original image back in, or paint less in, whatever you like. So what I'll do is I'll just isolate those lips by adding a new layer and filling it with a grey colour. We'll name this lips, and then I'll press my layer mask tool, which is this rectangle with a circle in the middle of it, to create a mask. Now if I zoom in, layer masks only work in black and white, so if I paint on black with that layer mask selected, what it will do is erase everything on that layer mask. So I need to have my brush selected as well, sorry. So three things: you need to have your brush selected, you need to have your mask selected over here, and you need to have either black or white. So if I'm painting in black on my layer mask, it's actually deleting everything. And then what happens is if I go too close to her lips, like here, I can also switch my brush and then just paint back in. So it hasn't lost that detail, it's just hidden it. So the most important thing that I want you to get used to is that black hides and white reveals. Now, the other thing is this brush is probably not the right brush to be painting around her lips because it's a little bit too hard. So what I can do is go up to my brush presets here and pick another brush and specify the size of that brush, which will make it bigger, or the hardness. So the hardness just means how strong the edge is. Another shortcut is to hold down Control and Option. If I click with my brush, it will show me a red dot, and that's how my brush is to look. If I drag it to the right, it will show me a larger brush. If I drag it to the left, it will make my brush smaller. If I drag it up, I'll have a softer brush, and if I drag it down, I'll have a more firm brush, okay? So for this, I want a relatively soft edge. I'm going to start painting again. So once I get close to the actual lips, I'm going to change my brush size again. Okay, it's starting to look pretty good. Notice how I'm deleting these last little bits of skin, and my brush is actually quite far away from her mouth. So all I need to do is just really, really lightly go over it just with the edge of that brush, and it will pick up those pixels and hide them for me. Another way to do this is to reduce the opacity and the flow, and that will give you an even softer edge and make it really easy to blend. It's the last little bits around here. Okay, cool. So that looks all right. I can probably go even more around these edges. I'll just make my brush a little bit smaller. Let's bring the flow right down, the opacity down. Again, if you have a Wacom tablet, this task is even easier. So when to use masks and when to use a selection. So masks are good for blending one object into another. So you notice that I selected the lips using the marquee tool. I could have selected the lips using the pen tool as well. And then I would create a layer mask just to brush in around the edges. Okay. Alright, so that looks okay. So if I get rid of this layer, you'll see that I'll be able to move these lips around anywhere I want, okay? Say we want to put lips on her eyes. Wherever you like. I can also, again, pick up that layer and then duplicate it across to a new document and put lips on this model here. So what I'm going to show you for this tutorial is, say for my Jekyll and Hyde poster I wanted to have super hairy eyebrows. What I'm going to do is select those eyebrows and then bring them across to Angelina Jolie and retouch them on her face. Just get rid of those lips. Okay, so again, I pick up my marquee tool and I'm just going to draw over each of these eyebrows. Press Command J and then using my move tool, pick up those eyebrows and drag them across onto Angelina Jolie. Okay. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is actually create a layer mask, and then I'm just going to start painting. Now, because there's a lot of area around these eyebrows, I can have quite a big brush, and that's fine, just to make the selection much quicker. Don't worry if you delete some areas and then realize you have to go back. So the eyebrows are also quite big at the moment, so I'm just going to resize them just a little bit. Rotate slightly by clicking and holding on the corner. Okay, cool. So that's about right. Now what I can do is turn them on and off. Yeah, they look about in the right spot. So what I'm going to do now is just zoom back in. And again, I'm going to, using my brush tool, select a much smaller brush, a little bit softer edge. And I'm also going to turn down the opacity and the flow so that I can blend these eyebrows much better into her face. So sometimes you might have to go over the same area a few times with the brush. Because we have got quite a transparent area that we're tracing over. Okay, so see, I went a little bit too far there and I can start to see the underside of her original eyebrow. So I'm just going to paint that back in. Let's go to the other side. So black again to delete or to hide. Great. Okay, we'll zoom out, and so that's her new eyebrows. Now you see when you zoom out, there's actually quite a strong colour difference up here. So it's always a good practice just to keep zooming in, zooming out, having a look. Does the colour blend well? Is it okay? Okay, so zoom out again. And so there are the eyebrows on Angelina. And that's something that we actually wouldn't be able to do had we used the pen tool, because you wouldn't be able to blend those skin areas and it would be much more difficult to pick up that hair.